Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. How you doing, Senator?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm okay. I mean, it's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm having my first sips of coffee. You
Oh,
have
wow.
coffee?
No, I don't. I haven't had my coffee yet this morning, so I'm probably gonna be a little groggy, you know?
Just
It's
don't
kinda
be
the way I roll.
grumpy.
Oh, yeah, could be that too, and I haven't had my Irish creamer, so, I mean,
I know.
things
When
aren't.
John Tester hasn't had his coffee, it means he hasn't had his booze either.
That's right, exactly. I haven't anything to numb the senses for the day yet, so,
To put up with me.
you in the White House, so it's.
Oh boy. Hey, that's me. Don't let me in with them.
It's just look, man, I just call it like I see it, that's all, what can I say?
Okay, so we have today joining us Ty Cobb, former federal prosecutor, former White House special counsel, actually under the first Trump administration. So many things that we can and will talk to Ty about, including many headlines from this morning that we will save to talk to him about those headlines. But we can, including the executive order on voting, the court rulings on that big, beautiful ballroom, and funding NPR and PBS. Lot to talk about.
Yeah, for a guy that's got the best name and the best stash in the business, I'm telling you.
I know.
Yeah.
I know you know this, but you Google Ty Cobb and the baseball player. So it's like lawyer, baseball player. So we'll chat with him about that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So should we do some headlines?
I think we should do some headlines. It's not like there isn't some things that are going on, you know?
Oh boy. Okay. We're in day 33 of the war with Iran. We now have over 50,000 troops in the Middle East. There is a prime time address tonight that Caroline Levitt put out last night. This tweet saying that the president will give an address to the nation tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, just within the last hour, the president put this up on Truth Social, saying that Iran's new regime president, less radicalized, has just asked the United States for a ceasefire, and he says we will consider when the Hormuz Strait is open, free, and clear. Until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Ages. So that's new this morning, Senator.
Well, shit's happening. Yeah, I mean, look, we can talk about how bad Iran is, and we can talk about how for 47 years they've been doing bad things. That's all true. But when the war isn't going well, when you've created a bigger problem than you had when you started the war. The Strait of Hormuz was open when the war started. There is a reason that Reagan and Bush 1 and Clinton and Bush 2 and Obama and Trump in his first term, because he had some people around him that had a brain, and Biden didn't invade Iran. And this is just part of the reason. And there's also a bunch of troops there, as you well know, Maritza, and our viewers know. And I'm going to tell you, if he goes in with ground troops, Katie, bar the door. That's not going to be good. I'll just tell you that. And I don't know how you accomplish what he wanted to accomplish when he started this war. Um, by just using air power, quite frankly. Not that not that his goals are very
Well,
well set, and he
right. They've been changing.
certainly hasn't had an end game from the beginning, which anybody in the military knows. If you don't have an end game, you end up with these endless wars, and America first goes by the wayside. So it's not a good situation for sure. And the president often, wakes up and hopes he's negotiating, when in fact you hear from so many sources that there ain't much negotiations going on. That you know,
Well, it seems that things are just change all the time. I mean, yesterday he was talking to reporters in the Oval Office and basically saying, he can end the war whenever he wants, that he's willing to end it without reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And I mean, on Monday, he threatened to basically commit war crimes. I'll put this up.
uh,
He said, he's gonna conclude their lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells in Karg Island, and possibly all their desalinization plants. NBC's Garrett pushed Caroline Levitt on this, in the press briefing, and, basically said that these are war crimes. He's threatening war crimes. So there's a lot happening. Meanwhile, you know, he's he just keeps moving the goalposts. So I'm very curious to
Yeah.
see what happens tonight.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what he says. It's also very, very interesting because, quite frankly, I think that when he got done with Venezuela, he thought this is going to be easy, just like Venezuela, and it ain't easy. And if he'd listened to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he would be in a much better position right now. But right now, we've had um, people die over there because of this action. We've had hundreds wounded because of this action. We've seen the $1 billion a day at least go out the door from our own country's treasures. We've seen the price of energy worldwide go through the roof, including in this country, but every other country too. You can imagine what other folks are thinking about us right now. We've just increased
Right.
the cost of energy in every country in the world significantly because the action of a president and the inaction of Congress. Once again, Congress is sitting there on their hands, not doing a damn thing, except for Lindsey and Cotton, who stand up and go, rah, 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 go ahead and do it. They ought to sign up. They ought to sign up and go to the front lines, not in the back bunker. It's
Well,
unbelievable.
we're gonna get to Lindsay in a few moments. I have
Okay.
something to say about that. And some more headlines on Iran that I wanna talk to Ty Cobb about, some legal questions. Okay, this, came out yesterday that the Trump administration's moving the U.S. Forest Service headquarters from DC to Salt Lake City. It means shuttering research facilities in 31 states. Now, the Wilderness Society already coming out warning that this could end up hollowing out the Forest Service. Thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it ends up with less management. The forests need to be managed, and a greater push to privatize our public lands, which west of the Mississippi is a huge deal. East of the Mississippi, it's a big deal. And it's we were here before in the first term when he was going to take the Department of Interior to Denver, and in fact did. And so it's just silly. And it's, by the way, it's waste, fraud, and abuse. By the way, it's a waste of money. And everybody's set up. Everybody can do it. Everybody knows where to go right now. And now it's going to be taken to Salt Lake, and it's not smart, and it's not good for our national forest. And by the way, the end game here is to sell off our public lands. That's the end
Well,
game.
when
Mike
I
leads
saw
a big
Salt
push
Lake
on that. Mike Lee's a big push, and guess where the Forest Service is going? To Utah, where Mike Lee represents. So there you
That's
go.
exactly what I thought of, Senator Mike Lee, Utah, the push to sell public lands,
Yeah.
and saying he's gonna keep trying at that. We have a comment, Karen, in our chat on Substack says that the president wants the EU countries to open the Strait of Hormuz because he claims the US doesn't need it. He wants them to fix a mess he made when a month ago the strait was open. And yeah, he is
Yeah.
saying that this is
Well,
that was what the Wall Street Journal was reporting, that he's saying, well, the allies, they can fix this.
he made $1.5 billion sitting in the Oval Office last year, so he probably isn't very concerned when gas goes up $1 a gallon. But I'm going to tell you, working families and small businesses are, and it's cutting a hell of a hole out of them. And agriculture, it's not only the increase in energy costs, it's an increase in input costs. And you know what? When this stuff goes up, like when fertilizer goes up or the price of equipment goes up, it don't come down. And that's really the bottom line here. He's increasing costs that's going to have impacts for years and years and years. If he ever leaves office, it'll have impacts for administrations to come.
Oh boy. Okay, I thought I had my photos ready for this, but I don't. So we're just gonna have to describe it for you. Okay. Uh, Lindsey Graham and I have something in common.
Yes, you do.
We both like Disney World and Disneyland, apparently. So Lindsey Graham is feeling the heat for going to Disney World over the weekend. And here's the deal. My beef is not that he went to Disney World because I love who doesn't love a good trip to Disney World? I'm a big Disney fan. I think that the dichotomy here for me is comparing him at Disney World with a Princess Ariel Little Mermaid bubble wand and his comments about bombing Iran and, cheering on war and death. I think that's my issue. But one thing that I think is being missed, Senator, as a Disney adult, in this conversation is that Lindsey Graham was seen dining at Chef Mickey's in the Contemporary Resort. Chef Mickey's is where you go for a character buffet, which means Mickey, Minnie, and friends stop by each table to talk and interact with the guests. Why is Lindsey Graham at a Mickey and Minnie character breakfast after cheering on killing people in Iran? That's like, what is happening?
Let's just be honest. You're bitter. You're bitter. You're bitter because Lindsay's doing this and you're not. Okay. So let's just be honest with everybody out there that's watching this. You're a bitter, bitter woman that wants to be at that dinner, with Minnie and Mickey and Daffy and all those folks. I don't know.
Daffy is
Or-
not
Okay,
Disney.
okay, I'm sorry. It's not. This isn't not. This isn't exactly in my wheelhouse. All right, but it is in yours. But let's just be honest. It has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that you wanted to be there at the character dinner and you weren't.
Well, I think he was at a breakfast, and yes, I do love a character breakfast because they have Mickey-shaped waffles that are second to none. But I am a little bitter about it, but not for the reason you think. Like, I'll go do my character breakfast, but why is Lindsey Graham there having breakfast with Mickey and Minnie? And yes, Gene, don't forget his bubble wand, his Little Mermaid bubble wand walking through the Magic Kingdom.
So here's the deal. I think if I was in Congress and saw what Congress hasn't done, holding the executive branch accountable for the last 16 months, I'd probably want to go to Disneyland and have a character dinner too. I mean,
Well, it's
might
my
as well,
favorite
might as
place
well
to dissociate. Yeah.
totally get away from reality, totally get away from what the hell's going on in the world. And if you're in denial on that stuff, that's what you do. But you
Uh,
shouldn't take it out on Lindsay just because you're not there. For God's sakes.
I cannot believe that you have nothing to say about this other than to come hard on me. Come down
Yeah,
hard on
well,
me.
that's the way it is. I mean, I mean, you're how many times you go to Disneyland a year? At least every other month, for God's sake.
Oh, that's
So,
not.
so okay, every third month, every quarter, you're there, and that is true, by the way. And I think that's okay. It's not a bad thing, but don't deny Lindsay the opportunity.
I'm not calling for war. I'm not celebrating killing people.
Well, maybe.
All right, fine. We're gonna agree to disagree on this. It's time to bring Ty in. Ty Cobb, do
Okay.
you have anything to say to back me up on this about Lindsey Graham being at Disney World?
Well, I think it's 100% appropriate that my senator, as you know, I live in South Carolina, is at Fantasyland. I can't imagine why he'd be anywhere else. And just on your Daffy point, I'm with you 100%. I'm much more of a Huey, Dewey, and Louie guy.
Thank you. Who are Disney characters, Senator?
Well, I, I'm sorry. I've lost my edge as far as knowing which character goes with which corporate
Which
entity.
franchise?
Uh,
Yeah, Daffy is Warner Brothers. So let's just get it straight. Hey, Ty, welcome to Grounded. Thanks for joining us.
Wonderful to be with you all.
We have just tons to talk to you about. I watched a show yesterday. I watched Jim Acosta's show where
Huh.
Larry Sabato called you a real Debbie Downer, and it seems like John Tester's stealing that title today.
I
look,
did.
look.
I didn't.
You know,
I didn't feel. Oh, I was going to say I didn't feel as emasculated as Christy Numb's husband, but it was. Yeah, it was tough.
oh, Jesus.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
we, we, but we got to now. I mean, you,
We've got to talk about
I
that.
brought it up. He's opened the picture that you just can't get out of your mind.
I don't even take a clip of the picture. I here's the thing, like, people have a lot going on in their private lives, but, don't spout hateful rhetoric toward other people when you have your own stuff going on at home.
I saw a lot of stuff online today expressing real concern for those puppies.
Yeah.
Oh, those puppies. Yeah, it was quite an image, folks. If you haven't seen it, you should go Google this. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there. So, Ty,
You,
I don't
you
even
know,
know.
I just want to say one thing before we proceed. Uh, when my co-host, the talented and laid off. Teresa Giorgio saw that picture. She said, I look at my life and I think it's pretty screwed up, but I got nothing. I mean, I got nothing.
That's the thing. This administration, like, they make me feel like a very boring person, right? My life is very boring compared to some of the stuff and the shenanigans that go on. I
So
That's a
don't
fact.
I don't have, I don't have pull-up competitions at the airport. I don't have an Apache helicopter flying outside my window. I don't have, these wild, headlines about my husband and my lover who's also working for the administration. There's just a lot going on.
Well,
It is.
I thought, it's interesting because as you did the headlines, I was thinking to myself, gosh, it gets worse every day, of course. But I do think the most consequential thing that happened yesterday involved the Apache helicopter because the entire chain of command for DoD got turned upside down after the you know ridiculous pilots who had wasted our taxpayer dollars and humiliated our military by doing the helicopter salute to Kid Rock.
I
Had been,
actually have video of this. I have video of this.
they'd been suspended appropriately and were under investigation. And Hegseth came over the top, eliminated the chain of command, and cheered them on and eliminated their investigation and said they were free to go, much like Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi and Christy Nome did with the murderers of Renee Good and Alex Preddy.
Yeah, so here's the video, Senator. I don't know if you saw this, but here we go. Oh, so an Apache helicopter basically just did a flyby, say hi to Kid Rock at his home. And initially, the reports were that, oh, those pilots are in trouble for doing that. Oh, where did John Tester go?
He's hiding.
Well, we'll keep explaining this for our viewers. And what happened after that, like you said, Ty, yeah, Pete Hegseth said, "No, no, continue on, Patriots. Nobody's in trouble here." It is. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that? Like,
Well, only the example I mentioned, which is the ICE agents and DHS people murder, 2 citizens in Minnesota, and, they're immediately insulated and protected, and DOJ is not doing anything about it.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. I'm going to wait for Senator Tester to come,
Sure.
and maybe he will get back on here. I'll watch for his icon to pop up. So let's keep going though. We have today the Supreme Court hearing on birthright citizenship.
Right.
So, President Donald Trump is apparently planning to attend this. It makes him the first sitting president to attend oral arguments. I really want to get Senator Tester's take on this too. But what do you make of that? Oh, here we go. Here he is.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Senator, you're back.
Sorry
So I,
about that.
I was just saying that President Trump is going to attend the Supreme Court hearing on birthright citizenship today, which makes him the first sitting president to attend oral arguments. So Ty, what do you both make of that? And what are you watching for today in that case, in that hearing that we should be paying attention to?
Uh, 2 things. One, Trump's attendance is, ham-handed and sort of silly. He's only there because he thinks he might have some intimidating effect on people. He's not there because of his intellectual interest, because as we know, he has no intellectual. But but he also wants to have a press conference on the stairs of the Supreme Court on the way out, so that he can quickly denounce the judges for what is certain to happen in this hearing, which is great skepticism that the government's even taking this absurd position. And that will be the result of the hearing. I mean, it is conceivable that 1 or 2 of the judges, you know, may appear to be interested in what John Sauer has to say today. I think John's arguing. Um, but I seriously doubt it. This is pretty simple. I mean, the 14th Amendment from 1868 was designed to, for sure, to allow black citizens to vote as former slaves, but it doesn't just say former slave. It says all people born in the United States. Now that is not ambiguous, and if Congress had intended to carve out, some exemptions, some exceptions, they would have done so clearly. The government has said that the word "subject to the jurisdiction of the United States" somehow gives them a hook, and they have invented arguments really as to how people might not really be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. But this is a position. Make no mistake about it. This is a purely racist attempt by the government to eliminate voters and immigrants from the voting rolls. On the fantasy, of course, that they have that there are a bunch of illegal immigrants that are actually voting, which of course is not true. Just like there's no voter fraud that justifies seizing ballots, particularly if you have to lie to a federal judge in order to get a warrant to do so. So I think what's going to happen today at this hearing is that the government's going to get sort of short shrift. There may be a couple of justices who appear interested in the government's argument, but I doubt it. And I think Trump will have a explosive press conference at the conclusion of the hearing.
Here's what he said about it last night, or yesterday afternoon. He said, "Birthright citizenship has to do with" bless you. "Birthright citizen has to do with babies of slaves, not Chinese billionaires who have 56 kids." And he calls it one of the greatest scams of our time. I just have to believe that he's going there to put just pressure on the court
Yeah.
too, and
I
for the optics.
I was gonna ask, I think you're absolutely right on everything you said, especially the press conference afterwards, but is there an intimidation factor there with him sitting
Not,
there in front of the justices?
not, not, not like he perceives. So it's interesting, Senator. You were talking about Trump and why he went into Iran. As we know, against the advice of military advisors and anybody who had a map and could see that the Strait of Hormuz is there. Um, he went in because he has these grandiose, demented, narcissistic visions of himself as being so all powerful that if he shows his might, they would surrender. I mean, remember the early talk was, that he was waiting for the call for them to surrender and expecting the masses to take over in response to the killings of the former leader. None of which was going to happen. None of which was going to happen. I mean, as you said, the reason presidents all the way back to Reagan never did this is precisely what we're experiencing now, and it's worse now than it would have been then.
Yeah, by far. Yep, 100% correct. Yep. As usual, Ty Cobb is
No.
on hit as usual, Ty Cobb hit the ball out of the park. I'm telling you.
Oh, I bet he's never heard anything like that.
I was a doubles guy. I was a doubles guy.
Can we clear that up? Are you related to the baseball player?
Uh, I'm told I am, but I've never done the 23andMe or the genealogy. But the family lore is that he was a distant cousin of my grandfather's. It certainly wasn't a close relationship. I never met him or anything. But it is funny because every time I meet somebody and they hear that name, they go, "Gosh, I thought you were dead." Um, and now that I'm getting older, I sort of, they make more sense.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanna ask you about this other legal thing that popped up last night.
Sure.
Okay. Trump President Trump is threatening to pull out of NATO. Of course, he's been very critical of NATO. This isn't a new thing. Um, but the question in this Time magazine headline is, can he legally do that? I want to remind folks that there was bipartisan legislation that passed in 2024. Senator, I'd love to know if you remember this, that prohibits any U.S. president from withdrawing from NATO without Senate approval or an act of Congress. And guess
Yeah.
who that was sponsored by?
Lisa Graham.
Co-sponsor no, Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio.
So, can he legally pull out of NATO? And if he keeps saying this stuff, I mean, who's gonna stop him?
So I can he legally do it? No, not alone. I mean, it's sort of like the ballroom decision yesterday. He would need authorization of Congress to do that. But 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 he will. I mean, he'll sign some screed executive order at sometime between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. when nobody's there to restrain him. That does something like this. On the other hand, I would argue, sadly, in my Debbie Downer mode, that Trump's already destroyed NATO.
That's right.
Greenland destroyed NATO,
Yeah.
and the European countries were our lifetime allies. For certainly back to the mid 1900s in a way that was, written in blood. Um, they're running the other direction. I mean,
Yeah.
they're restructuring their economies. They're looking inward. They're looking to China. It's like Australia. Australia, we probably don't have a more loyal ally than Australia, but this oil crisis is very severe in Australia right now, and they have no alternative but to basically look to economic alliances with China, whose control of the South Pacific, has expanded exponentially as we have all our carriers in in the Gulf over there, and are doing nothing in the Pacific. So, could Trump do this? He likely will try or threaten to do it, um, but he can't do it legally. On the other hand, I don't. It's all theater now because he's already killed NATO, in my view.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ty. You're absolutely right, and he has literally. If you remember when JD Vance went to the G7, the first thing he did is he badmouthed the shit out of all the democracies in Europe and talked about how great China and referenced them as being great, China and Russia. He has empowered Russia like we'd never seen with this war in Iran. He's released all the sanctions on the oil. They're making billions again to be able to use against the democracy in Ukraine, and he pushed all the European countries to China. Just he's done it much better than Xi Jinping could have ever done it. And this is how you make America great again. And Congress sits there and does nothing. And the
Right.
people that are sitting here watching this, I don't know if they're telling themselves that this is Disneyland and not to worry about it, but he's making this country into Argentina really fast, really fast. What are your views on that?
I'm not sure I could have said it any better than that. I think, you know, got to be careful here, but I spent a lot of time concerned about China, a lot of time, trying to understand, their goals and how they might interfere with U.S. elections and things like that in my role at the White House and China and Russia and others. Um, China has a game plan. It's 100 years out. I mean, they don't do 5-year plans, and they certainly don't just whimsically lurch into every day like Trump does. They have a plan and they're executing on it. And that plan, I think included them actually taking some steps in Taiwan at or about this time, but they don't need to because they're watching the U.S. implode and they're just going to sit back. They're not going to do anything dramatic. They might run the risk of uniting the United States at a time where Trump is destroying it so effectively from within.
Fair point. Fair point.
So let's talk about we talk about whether he can and if he can and if it's legal and all these things. And he's going to the Supreme
Sure.
Court today. The courts still do keep pushing back on this administration. So at least temporarily. So you mentioned some of these decisions already, Ty. A judge ordered yesterday Trump to stop construction on the $400 million White House ballroom, which, as we all know, he's completely obsessed with. They said he needs congressional approval. There was another order that said that the defunding of PBS and NPR was unconstitutional. So what do you make of these? Like, do you think that the courts are pushing back enough? Is this just like the first? Are these like little drips? Do you think we're going to see more of this, or is this just like another day in Trump 2.0?
So come with me briefly to 30,000 feet, and let's go back to the 2025 project. In the 2025 project, Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt, they targeted sort of every hole and weakness in the Constitution through which they might be able to aggregate presidential power, and they have been executing on that, at a rapid rate that is virtually overwhelming. Sadly, as the senator pointed out, and I know it must vex him greatly, his beloved institution to which he devoted, his public service and for the benefit of all of us, has been neutered by cowardice. I mean, the Mikey Johnsons of the world and the Lindsey Grahams of the world, are just totally subservient to Trump. I mean, if Congress is going to shut down for 2 months merely to avoid a vote on releasing the Epstein files, they're not doing anything for Americans, and they're certainly not performing the role that the founders intended for them, which was to be the restraint on an evil president if we should ever have one. Now the founders, of course, never contemplated anybody as evil as Trump or as demented or crazy as Trump. Couldn't have imagined that he wouldn't be somebody like him wouldn't be impeached quickly. But sadly, that's not the government that we currently have. So what you see is Trump out there without any congressional restraint, doing all these unconstitutional things, having all these unconstitutional executive orders, such as the one last night on mail-in voting. Um, but and that's going to continue because he can't help himself. It's all about wielding power, and it's sort of like a 2-year-old picks up his rattle and shakes. So he's going to continue to do that, and the courts are going to have to play catch up the whole time. Courts are a little bit overwhelmed by the number of illegal things he's done, the little illegal things that Bondi and Blanche, Kristi Noem, RFK Jr., and Hegseth have done. You know, the court is going to continue to rule on those things, and they're going to get most of them right. They're not going to get all of them right. They haven't gotten all of them right so far, but they have stood up. Judges like Chief Judge Boasberg in D.C., Judge Leon yesterday on the ballroom, and other judges around the country, are standing up doing their duty, honoring their oaths, and applying the Constitution. Problem is that the courts are lagging enforcement mechanism under the design of the Constitution. The cases have to be developed. It takes weeks, months, sometimes years to get a decision, and there's nothing that can be done to accelerate that. There are very few opportunities for a court to proactively prevent the misconduct and illegal acts that we're seeing every day. So I think we're in a situation where, yes, the courts are stepping up. The courts will be doing this. They're not drips. I mean, these are haymakers. I mean, the reality is once they act, once they fire, like Judge Leon did yesterday, like Judge Boasberg did in Abrego Garcia, and he did on Jerome Powell. Once they throw these punches that the Constitution requires them to do, those are powerful, but they're late. And where it really comes into focus, I believe, is with regard to the election, because I think what you're going to see is Trump, invading cities. Trump's out there. He said that ICE should be in 15 jurisdictions. In 15 jurisdictions. Bannon is out there saying they will be everywhere. Tom Homan is saying, what do you have to fear from ICE? Trying to sensitize Americans to the likelihood that ICE will be there. ICE has no business there. They're legally prohibited from being there.
That's correct.
It is prohibited by federal law to intimidate voters or be a presence there that might. So they're just trying to sensitize us for the reality that they will be there. And my suspicion is, that invasion will be, 2 to 3 days in advance of the elections, maybe the day of the election, because it makes it impossible for the courts to really act in a timely way. And if the courts do issue the temporary restraining orders that are very likely because it's so unconstitutional and it's so illegal, I think there's a high likelihood that in that time frame, Trump will just ignore them. So I'm very worried that that's the plan. There's no reason for ICE to be in airports drinking Starbucks and cleaning their guns just to scare people and not really performing any duties that assist anybody. There's no reason for them to be protecting Marines. As you know, that there's a Marine ceremony that Trump
Yeah.
has deployed ICE to provide protection. If our Marines need protection, we're in pretty bad shape.
Yeah.
So this is really just logistical practice for what they have in mind.
Yeah. So you're saying that
Did I answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, she's muted.
Go ahead.
Hello, you're muted.
Why did I do that? I don't even
I
remember muting
I
it.
don't know, but it was a beautiful thing for as long as it lasted. So what you're saying is that the courts could proactively act before the election?
No, I'm saying they cannot. I mean,
Right.
they can't, unlike Congress, they can't make policy. They can't, create.
They have to react to something filed. Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes time, and that
Yeah.
we really need. I mean, Congress should protect us from what's inevitably
Yeah.
coming, but they won't.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out creative ways through the states and local governments, and we also have to steel voters, to understand that this is really a battle for our country. and
Yep.
they need the courage to get off the couch, put down the remote, you know, elect their neighbors, and go to the polls and vote these people out.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
So,
100%.
Ty, like, I know you've said you worked for the country, not for Trump personally. For our viewers who don't know the story, like, how did you come to go and work for the Trump administration in the first term? How did that happen? What did that look like? And would you do it again?
I would do it again. Um, but I mean, and frankly, Trump needs some competent advisors. He doesn't have anybody who won't say no, or who will say no. I mean,
Right.
he doesn't have anybody, providing any guardrails. I mean, the people I admire from my service were all people that you know that push back on Trump's worst instincts. General Kelly comes to mind in particular as chief of staff. I think he endured an incredibly difficult time, particularly at Arlington Cemetery when Trump was looking out and calling the brave soldiers who fell in service to our country and were buried in the ground there, losers, and saying he didn't get it and what was in it for them. And one of those people that he was saying that to General Kelly was General Kelly's son. I don't know a man who endured more in his service. I don't know a man who did greater service to the country in terms of trying to restrain the president from doing the types of things that he's doing now. And that was required. He doesn't have anybody like that now, and he needs people like that. And I've always said, I mean, people can damn me for working in the White House. I don't think about it that way, but the reality is, um, I think when you're asked to serve the president, um, you know, and you have the skills that are necessary and the love of country that is helpful, you don't really have a choice but to say yes. And in my situation, I was asked to represent the president personally earlier, which would have been highly remunerative, and I was at a large law firm, and um, but I said no. But then I was asked to, you know, uh, forego my partnership and return to federal public service. And because I had rocks in my head, I said yes. But I said it eagerly, and I would do it again because I can't tell you the feeling. As I had it as a prosecutor. I had it in that situation where you sort of have the white hat on. You're
Yeah.
going to work every day trying to do your best, not for yourself but for the country. I love that, and um, I had a very interesting experience there. Can't say it was easy. Can't say it wasn't challenging, but it was fulfilling, and to the extent that you achieved anything, or that you didn't, or that you didn't lose ground. I mean, as this White House loses ground every day, if you're measuring it in terms of virtue, integrity, aspirational things, and the good of the country. I think we were at least able to hold some ground and gain a little bit.
Do you think that
Yeah.
there are people there now doing the same thing? Are there still people within this administration kind of holding those guardrails?
Oh, sure, but I mean, they're hard to find, and frankly, if you find them, that means they'll find them and they'll be fired.
Mm,
Between Cash Patel and Pam Bondi, we now no longer have any counterintelligence expertise. All the seasoned prosecutors and FBI agents in that area have either been terminated or they've been reassigned to immigration cases. Yeah, as you know, Cash Patel fired the whole the whole office of Iranian intelligence at the FBI, just days before the invasion. And everybody, Todd Blanche was bragging at CPAC about how he and Pam and Cash had gotten rid of every FBI agent and prosecutor who ever touched the Trump's criminal conduct on 1/6 and the classified documents. So, I mean, we aren't safer. We aren't safer having gotten rid of uh, talented, experienced agents and hollowed out the FBI and hollowed out the Justice Department. But there are people in the Justice Department who quietly, every day you know, uh, try to prevent greater atrocities. There are people in the FBI who are, working hard to try to fill those holes. But if they find them, they'll fire 'em.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you worked around him. I mean, we spend our lives trying to figure out how the mind works, and you can say the same thing about Blanche and Cattell and the rest of them. Do these guys, do they want to see the democracy go away? I mean, are they just about power and that's the only thing that motivates them, or do they think about their kids or the next generations in this country and how it's going to screw up their lives and make it so they have the potential to live in poverty for the rest of their lives? Do they think about any of that?
So I'm sure they do at some level. But look at I mean, just look at their housing situation. Stephen Miller and his wife moved out of the suburbs to a military base. Christy Null lived on a military base. These guys are hunkering down. This really is sort of war against America, and they're hiding. They're hiding behind barbed wire and guards at the gate. That's that. This isn't. These aren't people who are going to PTA meetings and, or out there at church socials. These are people who are at the White House and then they're confined in a military base, performing their duties. I mean, I mean, people talk about Nazi comparisons as though that they're out of bounds. But if you take away the label Nazi and just say, look at historical authoritarian regimes, there's so much that this group has in common with the Goebbels, Gorings, Eichmanns of the world that it's really hard to ignore the parallels.
Yeah.
So, so, as you see it, being a man that has his Juris Doctorate and pretty well knowledgeable about how everything works in government, and I mean that honestly, by the way. What is the if Congress went to work and they walked into his office like they did to Nixon and said, "Hey, look, either you quit doing this crap, or we're voting you out. We got the votes to do it." Which I think that's the only way that you move forth with any sort of impeachment is if you actually have the votes and just don't do the exercise for the press conference. Um, is there any other thing that they can do besides voting? I mean, this is it, right? Or is there something else out there that people can do
I don't.
besides no king marches?
Yeah, I wish I had a magic wand. I was at the No Kings March. Um,
Which
uh,
one did you go to?
so I went to the one in Charleston, South Carolina. I live in South Carolina, so I went to the one in Charleston. I was at that same one in October, and good crowd, enthusiastic crowd, a lot of nice people, like-minded, who love their country, and are worried about their country. But I don't have a magic bullet, Senator. I don't know outside of going to the polls, as the founders envisioned would be the leveler for circumstances like this. I think that's really the only tool in there beyond impeachment and beyond the 25th Amendment. I will say, the 25th Amendment is now just a, a waste of ink because there never been circumstances, and there never again will be circumstances under which um, president was so unqualified, not just by character, of course, not just by the absence of integrity and greed, but he's totally diminished, and his narcissism has overwhelmed him. Everything is bullying, revenge, corrupt, and about his childish exercises of power, which we see all around the world, and is damaging not only the country but the world. So if this man can't be evicted under the 25th Amendment, if we don't have a cabinet that's courageous enough to do so, um, it'll never be done. So that's a tool that really doesn't exist. But impeachment exists, and I think if you were coming right out of civics class at 13 or 14 years old, given what you knew at that time, an impeachment vote would be easy here. But with dark money, with influence, with trying to preserve your job, these people don't seem to be up to it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
there's
so you've spent
that's a
time around
right
him.
there.
Go ahead, Senator. Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say that you're absolutely correct, Ty. I mean, I think there are other influences out there, but in the end, anybody that's serving, I don't care if it's in the House or the Senate or in an administration, they've got to be there for the country, not themselves. And if they're there for themselves, they're there for the wrong reason. And you got to be willing to give that up to do the right thing.
I was going to ask, so this has been a conversation I've been having a lot lately, but you spent time with the president. D have you ever seen a moment where you thought he might have empathy?
So I'm reluctant to go there just because of the privileges and confidentiality that,
Yeah.
attended my job. But taking my experience out of it, and talking about it just, generally, I think the president's narcissism, I haven't read anything by anybody who is a mental health professional who doesn't acknowledge the level of his narcissism being, extraordinary and one of the more extreme cases that people have seen. And narcissism 101 is narcissists like sociopaths are incapable of empathy.
Oh, this has been heavy. Should we have some fun? Should we have some fun,
Sure.
Senator?
I think we should have some fun. I mean, this is all
Anything
about
I'm
fun.
missing, though, that you wanna ask before we get to some fun? Anything we haven't touched on?
The only thing you're missing is you haven't drank a shot of whiskey yet this morning. And Ty usually, if you're going to give him the full podcast experience,
Yeah, I mean,
You.
I think somebody promised me she'd be dancing on her desk right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if we're talking about drinking in the morning, that's the other part of this podcast. We'll just get that straight right now. Okay, so John Tester is known for a couple of defining features, one of which is his missing fingers on his left hand, but the other is a flat top haircut.
Yeah.
There's a story there, so I'm wondering if there's a story behind your signature look, Ty.
Well, I repped a flat top for about 14 years, as a
Whoa!
child, so I was there. I mean, I was probably the driving economic force behind the success of Bushwhacks at one point in my life. Uh, but, no, so my mustache started, over 50 years ago, and, um contrary to one of the myths that's out there in the multi-volume treatises about my mustache, I've never put anything in it. I've never put any, well, except lunch and coffee. I mean,
Oh my god.
but but I've never put any wax in it, or I
It
don't.
just curls naturally like that?
Yeah, with the help sometimes of a toothbrush when it gets to be this size. I trim it sort of twice a year, whether I need to or not. And it's sort of getting to that stage. But yeah, it's, I mean, I'd say that, the enthusiasm for my mustache is not universal. I get a lot of texts about, being a Monopoly man, or, why am I not still selling oatmeal like Wilford Brimley? And, um, people used to come up to me in airports and tell me how much they like my music, thinking I was David Crosby.
Oh
So,
my god.
it's been an interesting, experience, but, it just sort of happened, and I like it, my kids like it, and it's sort of me now. If I cut it off, I'd be unrecognizable.
Yeah, but maybe that'd be a good thing.
Maybe. But
And
I get
some
I
days.
sure, I mean, at some point, Cash Patel may force that, but not yet.
Are you worried about that? I mean, you counseled the president during the special counsel investigation, into the Russian collusion in 2016. Do you worry about them coming after you for anything?
Um,
I mean, he seems to be fixated on both
I think
2016
it's
and
a possibility, particularly given, the revenge-oriented, um, focus of the Justice Department and others, and Trump himself. But, at my age, given what I've been through, much like the senator, I mean, when you're in the public arena, as he said, you're there for the people. You're not there worried about yourself. And if you are, then you just don't perform. I mean, there are a lot of people up there worried about themselves, protecting their jobs, doing whatever the president wants. That's never going to be me. But you can't really afford to think in those terms, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Senator,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fact. Can you just listen? Robert Mueller passed away just very recently. Can you just give us a little insight on what kind of guy Robert Mueller was?
Sure. Vision a firefight like none you've ever seen before. Your comrades, friends, buddies, foxhole mates are dying right and left, and one of them gets hit in a rice paddy in Vietnam, and rather than retreating, you walk into the firefight and pick him up and carry him, hundreds of yards to safety. That's Robert Mueller. That's what he did. I think it's what he got. He got recognized for that. He took a bullet in the leg as a Marine, and this is a guy, who was born not with a silver spoon, but with many privileges. Went to one of the fanciest prep schools in the country. Excelled as an athlete and as a student. Went to Princeton. His decision to go to Vietnam was based on the fact that one of his former teammates had been killed in Vietnam, and he wanted to honor his service. He wanted to honor it so badly that rather than take a deferment for a knee injury, he rehabbed his knee for a year before going in. So this is somebody with character, integrity, courage. He was a very highly principled person. I knew him. I first met him in 1983 when we were both prosecutors in different parts of the country, but we became close. We used to have lunch in DC, I don't know, every month to 6 weeks when he was first down in private practice. And most of the time, he would explain to me how much he hated representing criminals. He wanted to go back into the Justice Department, which he finally did to lead the homicide division at the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. A man who, by circumstance, after he took the FBI job, less than a week later, 9/11 happened.
Mm.
So he was thrown into overwhelming, unprecedented times, and performed admirably in terms of restructuring the FBI into probably the greatest counterterrorism force that the country's ever known, even though Kash Patel and Trump have dismantled it. What Trump did, dancing on his grave, saying, "I'm glad he's dead," and um, you know, good, good when he died. Probably the most indecent thing that a president has ever done, just in terms of starkness. You just don't see that. You don't expect that from your president. It's not as it's just much more cruel and despicable, I think, than even the memes that we now see under the presidential portraits, where he makes fun of previous Democrat presidents and even previous Republican presidents. And that's not a partisan thing. That's all about trying to make him look great. So this is somebody who has tried to demean an American hero, and I think he's lost credibility with others. In fact, one of the interesting things I think about our country right now is the fact that it was so despicable that even to this day, Fox News has not reported on it, because Fox News knows its audience won't will lose respect for Trump if this comes out. So that tells you exactly how despicable it was for him to try to demean Robert Mueller, who, as I said, early on, when people tried to get me uh, um, you know, to contest him, I described him, the first time I was ever asked, as an American hero. He's only more so at this stage of the game, and I think he should be an inspiration to those of us who have done public service, those people in the future who may consider it. He could have made millions of dollars and had all the power and glory and accolades possible in private practice, but he chose public service with a passion. And he's somebody that I said recently about. He's one of the few people that I know that every time I was with him, which was many times, I left those encounters wanting to be a better person.
That's a
Ty,
great.
thank you for that, Ty. I just want to admit my sins for a second. A few years back, I can't even tell you when, but you were on TV, and in the crown below your name was, "This is President Trump's attorney." And I immediately thought to myself, this guy is a bad guy. It's unbelievable. I can't believe I'm sitting here watching this guy But I just want to tell you something. I've changed my mind since many times, and you've totally confirmed it this morning on this podcast. You're an American treasure. Thank you
No.
for what you've done, and thank you for what you'll continue to do the right thing to keep this country the greatest country on earth. And it has been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And you're a top flight dude, and so thanks for what you do.
Well, that means a great deal to me, and, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your service, and Marissa, you're getting this stuff out there with, good humor and a smile, and, I'm sorry you didn't dance on your desk today, but, uh, maybe the next time if we do this later in the afternoon, you'll have had some alcohol and,
Well, while we were sitting here, one of my friends who happens to be watching live wrote and said, "How can you drink all day if you don't start in the morning?" I mean,
That's right.
it's a great point, right? It's a great point. So, we'll just continue to dissociate next time I can't go to Disney World like Lindsay. We'll just have to do that. We'll have an all-day party.
that sounds great. Well, thank you all so much for having me, and I really enjoyed it, and you guys do a great job, and, thanks for getting this out there so people can understand what's really happening in the world rather than just read the Washington Post and listening to CBS and the other media that's being taken over by
Mm,
conservatives.
yeah.
Amen,
Well,
brother.
thank you so much, Ty. We hope you have a lovely day.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Wonderful. Great to be with you.
You too. Bye. Oh, so much to
Good.
talk. We had so much to talk about.
Yeah, he's a good man. I'll tell you that. He's solid. He's solid. Yeah. It's.
Very solid, I
I mean,
know.
I've got to tell you, when he was sitting there talking about Mueller, I was thinking to myself, man, at one point in time, Mueller obviously was a quality guy, and to have the life experience he had with him, and then to hear what the president said about him, I mean, how ridiculous. But then I was thinking, geez, this guy's seen a lot in his lifetime and done a lot, and
Yeah,
and been in the room where it happened,
yeah.
and he's got values, and he's got character, and he's smart, and
And
it's good
funny.
to have him on. Yeah, funny. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
What the hell?
I didn't get to mention, but if he's still watching, I think he is, that, Senator Tester and I were on a podcast on Friday called Fucked Up Friday, and we
Yeah,
got to pitch our most messed up story of the week,
yeah.
and that was my story, was the comment about, celebrating the death of an American hero who served our country. It's just, again, I'll say it here, but as a parent who's trying to teach my 14-year-old son kindness and good values and not to lead with things that are mean spirited, like it doesn't help be a good example for the kids out there. So,
It's all
or for
good.
the adults, also adults. Like the amount of people who take time out I'm just gonna rant for a second. The amount of people who take time out of their day to send a private message to somebody just for the sheer sake of being mean. I will never understand this motivation. I never wake up and think, "I'm gonna go just, like, send the meanest message I can to that person just because." Like, why do you guys do that? Why do you do that? Not you guys,
Welcome,
in our
welcome,
community here.
welcome, 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 welcome to the world of politics. That's you just got to let it. You just got to consider the source, and let it go. It's the way it
Yeah,
is. Some
yeah.
people are screwed up. Some of those screwed up people are working in the White House right now. Some of them are sitting out there looking at podcasts just to be bitchy, and that's okay. But
Nice.
it's all good. It's
There's
all
enough meanness out there. Just be nice, everybody.
now. Listen. Damn it! Quit being so nice. It's all good. Hey, I gotta scoot. I got work to do today. I mean,
Fine.
it's April Fool's Day. I didn't even pull an April Fool's joke
Holy
on you.
I know I was
Nothing.
thinking about that, like, we didn't
Yeah,
even
we could have.
do anything
Yeah, I
funny.
mean, I could have come on wearing a wig or something, and you'd have thought I grew my hair out over the week or something like that. But I didn't. But at any rate, I'm gonna scoot out. You're gonna have
Tell
to
me about
close
your
this
hat.
out with
Tell me about
Pearl
your
Jam.
hat.
I mean, it's a hat that I've worn before. It's actually a Richland Aviation hat for
Oh,
some good company in Richland County. That is. What's your hat?
I
What's
brought one today.
what is
Not
it?
team, not train.
Oh my God! But but
Alright, guys. Thanks for
but
joining us here.
tally ho.
Oh, I better end this. Here, let's end it.